A waiter with a professional smile approached me. "Are you the bride's sister?" "I've been instructed to escort you to your seat." He led me to a small chair placed directly beside the restroom entrance. Alone. The tears I had been fighting back surged again, pressing harder behind my eyes. I blinked once, then twice, trying desperately to contain them. But the third time, my self-control shattered completely. Without saying a word, I turned away and rushed into the nearby restroom. I remembered. I remembered how I had driven 10 hours through a raging snowstorm just to surprise my sister at her engagement party. In the passenger seat, I had secured a custom-made cake, carefully boxed. But they didn't want me there. After everything I had done for my family, what are you supposed to do when they betray you like this? Let me tell you what happened recently. I had worked the night shift the day before. As soon as I finished, I hit the road to be there for my sister's big moment. There was barely any room for me in the car because of the large white bakery box nestled on the passenger seat. Catherine had once said she dreamed of having a raspberry champagne cake for her special day. So I saved up 3 months of my caregiver salary just to order it in the morning. Through sleet, through ice, through roads so tense with danger they seemed to turn white, with fear I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers cramped. All I wanted was to see her face light up the moment she saw I had arrived. I couldn't wait for that. I only stopped once for gas and coffee. In the grimy gas station restroom, I changed into the only good dress I owned. My coat was damp and heavy on my shoulders. When I finally arrived at the mansion in the suburbs, my old sedan creaked across the fresh snow. The venue stood like a dream straight out of a bridal magazine. Crystal lights twined around marble columns, and violin music drifted through the frost-kissed air. My heart swelled. This night will be unforgettable, I thought. But not in the way I had imagined. I handed my keys to the valet. He glanced at my modest car. "Are you with the catering staff?" Shame burned in my chest, but I forced a smile. "No, I'm family." Even that moment left a small bruise. To be judged just by my car. But that was only the beginning. Then I saw her, Catherine, wearing a blush pink silk gown, her hair flawlessly styled. She was laughing with one of Douglas's groomsmen. But the moment her eyes found mine, her smile vanished. "You actually came?" she asked. 10 hours in a blizzard?" I said, trying to sound cheerful despite the knot in my stomach. "Surprise." She didn't even glance at the cake. "I really didn't expect you to come in this weather." I carefully placed the cake on a side table already crowded with elegant pastries. "But I did. It's your wedding." "There's no way I would miss it." Catherine blinked. Behind her, her friend Kristin leaned in and said, loudly and deliberately, "She wasn't actually on the guest list, was she?" I fought to keep my face neutral. That's when I noticed Catherine didn't look surprised. She looked irritated. "I need to go check on something," she muttered, and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there, frozen, as guests flowed around me as if I were just another inconvenient column. I spotted my mother, Diane, standing by the marble fireplace, adorned in pearls and designer silk. She offered a cold touch to my cheek, then whispered through tight lips, "Don't draw attention to yourself, okay? Tonight is Catherine's moment." My smile felt like it might crack like glass. Of course. Her eyes dropped to the damp hem of my dress, and a crease of disapproval formed on her brow. Douglas passed by, looking flawless in his tailored suit. I smiled at the man who would soon be my brother-in-law. He gave me only the briefest nod in acknowledgement. I walked deeper into the venue, each step dragging my heart lower. Along the walls were professionally framed engagement photos. My face wasn't in a single one. Near the champagne fountain, I overheard snippets of conversation. "She's always so dramatic. Every successful family has one disappointment. Maybe she thinks wearing scrubs every day entitles her to some kind of spotlight." Their laughter cut through me like a scalpel. I found the coat check to leave my damp outerwear. On a silver tray were gift boxes labeled bridal party. 10 exquisitely wrapped boxes, each with a personalized card. I checked twice. My name wasn't among them. A sharp, indescribable pain tightened in my chest. I sank onto a velvet bench. My phone buzzed. A group message. The bridal party thread. She doesn't fit our aesthetic. Tell her all positions are filled. It was sent from Catherine's number. My throat closed. A fire burned behind my eyes. I stumbled back outside, gulping in the freezing air as if it could numb the pain spreading in my chest. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional exclusion. My fingers trembled not from the cold, but from the words seared into my mind. Catherine's words. I stared at the screen, wishing I hadn't seen it. I didn't reply. I just deleted the message. But the wound had already carved itself into my heart. Even though the screen went dark, those cruel words echoed in my head like a mantra of pain. I gathered myself, drew in a deep, aching breath, and stepped back into the glittering banquet hall. I moved slowly, trying to figure out how to exist in a space that clearly didn't want me there. The music swelled, the bass vibrating through the polished marble floor. A perfectly curated celebration playlist. Cheerful voices rang out from the center of the room, where Catherine and her friends gathered around a tower of crystal champagne glasses. Her back was to me. Under the chandelier, I could see her practiced smile shining brightly. It would never be directed at me. Elegant tables filled the vast room, each one adorned with silk runners, flickering candles, and handwritten place cards. I checked every table, twice. My name was nowhere to be found, not misspelled. Not forgotten, just erased. Then, once again, the waiter with the professional smile approached me. "Are you the bride's sister? I've been asked to escort you." He led me to a tiny chair placed just beside the entrance to the restroom. Alone. On the small side table next to me sat a paper cup filled with water. From my isolated corner, I watched the slideshow projected on the far wall. Photos from Catherine's childhood cycled her kindergarten graduation, her high school prom, family vacations. Not a single image included my face. I had been completely edited out of her life story. The waiter brushed past me, his arm grazing mine as he moved without pause. The water in his tray splashed onto my dress. I shifted closer to the wall. Even the cold plaster felt more welcoming than the people who shared my blood. The tears I had been fighting surged once more, burning behind my eyes. I blinked once, then twice, but on the third blink, I lost all control. Without uttering a word, I turned and fled into the restroom just a step away. Inside a stall, I sank against the cold tile wall. I locked the door and clutched my still damp coat in my fists. The tears came slowly. They left fiery trails down my chilled cheeks. I didn't make a sound. Not even a whisper. Only quiet tears, the kind I had cried for years without anyone noticing. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, I wiped my face with my sleeve. I inhaled a breath meant to steady myself. The kind of breath you take before going into battle, even when you know you're outnumbered but refuse to surrender. As I stepped out of the restroom and tried to return to my seat, the usual buzz of the venue suddenly dimmed. It was replaced by the sound of scattered voices overpowering the background music. For a moment, I thought someone was about to begin a speech. But it was just conversation. The bride and groom were still on stage, but apparently someone had accidentally left a microphone on. No one seemed to have noticed yet. The party continued as normal. Just as I reached my seat, a voice hit my ears. One I knew too well. My sister's voice. Catherine. It wasn't whispered. It was loud, spoken into the center stage microphone. She stood in the middle of the room, holding a champagne glass high. Christine stood beside her. Then I heard my name. I can't believe Allison actually showed up. She's ruined everything. Public humiliation has a sting that never fades. I froze. I couldn't move. Every head turned to look at me. Now I could see Catherine clearly. Her perfect curls bounced every time she gestured with theatrical flair. Christine stood beside her, grinning. "I can't believe she actually came," Christine said loudly, her voice ringing across the quiet room. Catherine laughed, and her eyes locked onto mine. 10 hours in a snowstorm for what? To sit by the restroom door? Scattered laughter sliced through me like shattered glass. Cruel, deliberate. She's always so desperate to be included. God, if only she'd gotten into an accident along the way, this would have been so much easier. She giggled again and lifted her glass even higher. Just imagine how much sympathy I would have received, and finally, a little peace and quiet. Her words landed like grenades across the room. The laughter that followed wasn't just mean. It was rehearsed cruelty. The room began to shift. Some guests looked visibly uncomfortable. Douglas's face had gone pale. I stood frozen. Under the crushing weight of 100 pairs of eyes, my body refused to move. The cake I had brought tied with a gold ribbon I had carefully chosen during a night shift break sat untouched. A stunning 3-tier raspberry cake, adorned with crystallized flowers and a banner that read, "To love, to family, to forever." Still perfect, still unseen. I felt the weight of years of rejection pressing against my chest. Flashes of memories lit up in my mind: forgotten birthdays, dismissed achievements, unnoticed sacrifices. I wanted to disappear, to run, to sink through the floor beneath me. But then, a voice cut through the silence. "Excuse me." A distinguished older woman with silver hair stepped forward from the crowd. Elizabeth. Douglas's mother. I recognized her, though I couldn't quite remember where we had met. Elizabeth didn't look at me. She stared directly at Catherine, her expression cold and deliberate. "Did you just say," she asked, her voice resonating clearly through the silent room, "that you wished your sister would have gotten into a car accident?" Catherine's smile faltered. "It was just a joke, Elizabeth. You know how sisters tease each other." Elizabeth then turned to me. Her eyes softened with recognition. "Allison? Allison from Sunset Gardens Care Facility?" I nodded faintly, confusion mixing with the shame burning inside me. She had been someone I cared for. "This woman," Elizabeth said, pointing at me, "took care of me 3 years ago when I was fighting for my life." The room held its breath. After my surgery, she looked after me for 3 months. She stayed long after her shifts were over. Elizabeth continued, unwavering and composed. No one else could comfort me, but she sat with me for hours. When I couldn't sleep, she read to me. When I felt I might not recover, her kindness gave me strength. Douglas turned to look at his mother, then at me. His eyes lit with sudden recognition. I opened my mouth. My threadbare dress stood in sharp contrast to their designer gowns. "May I say something?" Catherine's face turned ghostly pale. The room went silent, like a hospital corridor at midnight. "I drove 10 hours through a snowstorm after a night shift," I began. My voice, to my surprise, was steady. "I brought a cake that cost half my monthly rent. And while you wished aloud publicly that I died in an accident, it still sits there, untouched." I pointed toward the cake box as I spoke. A wave of audible gasps rippled through the room. Christine choked on her mimosa. Mom's face turned a ghostly shade of pale. Elizabeth turned back toward Catherine, and her voice hardened like ice. "You mean to tell me that, even after your sister brought you a cake, you still wished she'd gotten into a car accident? Is this how you treat a sister who goes to such lengths for your sake?" Her voice cracked with emotion. "I'm sorry, but we cannot welcome someone who treats her own sister this way into our family." Catherine stammered. I didn't mean." "Douglas," Elizabeth interrupted, not taking her eyes off my sister, "I believe we need to have a serious conversation about this marriage." Douglas gave a firm nod. His jaw clenched. "I think you're absolutely right, Mom." Catherine's perfect world was crumbling around her. The atmosphere shifted. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was conclusive. It felt like cleansing, like release. Her cruel words still echoed faintly in the corners of my mind, but they already felt distant. Like the final gust of wind before a storm at last gives way to calm, that night I hardly slept. Not because of anxiety, but because something inside me had finally settled into place. The weight I had carried for years had been lifted. On a spring morning, with the snow finally melted, there came a knock at my door. When I opened it, to my surprise, it was Elizabeth. Douglas' mother stood on my porch in a refined coat, her calm smile unwavering as I stood frozen. "May I come in, Allison?" she asked gently. I welcomed her into my small apartment. On the table sat a bouquet of daisies I had picked up after finishing my shift the night before. "Douglas and Catherine's wedding has been officially called off," she said quietly. "I wanted to tell you myself." I wasn't shocked. I had expected to feel some cold satisfaction, but instead, I only felt a quiet, freeing peace. "She returned the engagement ring," Elizabeth continued. "Douglas realized he couldn't share his life with someone like her. The way she treated you, it revealed her true character." Outside the window, spring rain gently washed the streets clean. It felt like a symbol of renewal. A few days later, I received a long email from my mother. It was mostly filled with blame and fury, but hidden within it was a mention of Catherine. "She cries every day. Her friends have turned their backs on her. Even Christine won't answer her calls. She's losing followers on social media. You've ruined her life." I didn't respond. They still refused to see the truth. In their eyes, I was still the problem. And she was still the victim. 1 week later, I returned home from work to find Catherine sitting outside my apartment. She wasn't wearing designer clothes. Just a pair of plain blue jeans and a hoodie. Her makeup was imperfect. Her eyes were red and puffy. "Can I talk to you?" she asked in a quiet, shaky voice. I let her in. But the tension didn't disappear. As she entered, she didn't try to dominate the space like she once would have. She shrank into the edges of the room, avoiding eye contact. This version of her wounded, vulnerable, stripped of her glow felt like a stranger. "Have a seat," I said. I didn't bother to soften my tone. I had decided I was done performing. She sat at my kitchen table, tracing the grain of the wood with her fingertips. "I've lost everything," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Not just Douglas. My friends, my job, my followers, the video from the party leaked." The things I said. "You mean the part where you wished I died in an accident?" I asked calmly. She closed her eyes and nodded. "Everyone's abandoned me. Kristen just told me you brought this on yourself. She said I've been permanently blacklisted from the elite circle. No one wants to be associated with me anymore." "Do you know what Elizabeth did?" I asked. "She contacted every one of the wealthy clients I've ever cared for. She told them exactly what you said, exactly how you behaved." Catherine's face was drained of color. "Your brand now?" I said. "It's the woman who abused a caregiver. If this had been the old me, I would have comforted her. I would have told her it would be okay. I would have slipped right back into the role of the sister who sacrificed herself for family. But I didn't feel that need anymore." "Why did you say those things?" I asked. "Did you really wish I'd died?" "No," she cried, tears running down her face. I thought everyone would laugh. That's all." I wanted to impress them. I didn't even think about you. That's the point, Catherine, I said. You've never thought about me. Not during the 10-hour drive. Not when I bought that custom cake. Not when I made all those sacrifices for you. To you, I was just a prop, something to pull out when convenient. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed. I'm being held responsible for all the cancellation fees from the wedding. There's no way I can pay them all. I asked Mom for help, but her credit cards are maxed out. She blames me every day. She continued, I need help. What can I do to be forgiven? Do you want forgiveness from me? Or do you just want forgiveness from the world? The question silenced her. A heavy pause fell between us. What should I do? She finally begged. How do I fix this? You don't, I said gently. But you can learn from it. You can grow. She nodded, weeping. Can I stay the night? I can't afford a hotel anymore. I looked into her eyes. I saw real regret, real fear. But I also knew I was no longer responsible for her emotions. No, you can't. You need to go home, face Mom. The two of you need to take responsibility for how you treated me. But Allison, that's enough, I said, rising to my feet. I have to head out now. My night shift starts soon. The pain that flickered across her face would have once broken me. But not anymore. Tell Mom this. I'm no longer going to be used at her convenience. In the days that followed, Catherine's scandal spread rapidly across social media. Her carefully curated image crumbled. Former friends began deleting photos of her from their accounts. Months later, I spotted her by chance at a local supermarket. She stood behind a cash register, wearing a store uniform. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. The shine she once carried was gone. Our eyes met for a brief moment. She looked away, visibly ashamed. I'd heard she had moved out of the family home and into a small apartment. She was working full-time and taking night classes at a community college, hoping to earn a degree in marketing. All of her social media accounts had been deleted. One evening, sitting in my new apartment, larger, brighter, with a view of the park through wide windows, I wrote in my journal, it took me 32 years to understand that validation comes not from others, but from within. I spent so long begging for someone else to see my worth, because I hadn't yet learned to see it myself. From time to time, I still receive short messages from Catherine. Not real apologies, more like vague hopes for a deeper connection. But I no longer need them. Meanwhile, my mother's world was also starting to crack. The party video had gone viral, and her standing in her social circles began to unravel. A few days ago, I received her first apology. It wasn't sincere. It was soaked in resentment born from her fall from grace. Why would you do this to me? She wrote. My friends are ignoring me. My club membership is at risk. What did I ever do to deserve this from you? My reply was simple. Mom, it's what you didn't do that was the problem. Her social isolation continued. She was no longer invited to the seasonal tea parties she used to host. Donations to her charity efforts had plummeted. Eventually, she announced her retirement due to health reasons and moved into a modest home in the suburbs. Our relationship remained broken, but it no longer pained me. She still reaches out occasionally, though only in surface-level ways. She still doesn't fully acknowledge her behavior. But I no longer require that of her. I now stand confidently in the life I've chosen. I know my worth. And more importantly, I've learned to protect it. No longer am I the woman who drives 10 hours through a snowstorm and sacrifices everything just to be dismissed. Now, I am a woman who sets boundaries and honors her own value. Elizabeth visits sometimes. We sit over cups of tea and share peaceful conversations. Recently, she told me, by standing your ground, you gave Catherine the greatest gift. She's finally learning to face the consequences of her actions. I never needed my family's approval to know I was worthy. It was always there every time I held a patient's hand, every time I eased someone's pain, and ultimately, when I chose to care for myself. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see the strength I once missed. It was always there. Like a seed buried beneath snow, unseen, but very much alive, just waiting for the right moment to grow. One morning, I walked to a small bakery down the street. I took my time, breathing in the crisp, clean air that filled my lungs. I ordered a small cake, just for me. Nothing fancy or elaborate. A simple vanilla cake with white frosting. No dedication. No special occasion. Back at my apartment, I lit a single candle, cut a generous slice, and sat by the window. I didn't make a wish. I didn't need to. I simply savored each bite, fully present in the moment. Outside, the last patches of snow were melting, revealing fresh green shoots underneath. Not all new beginnings come with fireworks. Some only need quiet courage. And this beginning, this one is truly mine,